Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Jacqueline.
Good evening, Rashid. We're tag teaming for the evening, but we just tag team for the day because this is part of Startup Day 2024.
Which is part of, anyone know what this week is? Yes, Global Entrepreneurship Week. Well done. Full marks to everybody here. It's a week all about education, inspiration, and it's going to be an inspiring night tonight, right?
And in line with that, this actual event this evening is called Inspiring Entrepreneurs. So you are here for that event as part of Startup Day. And if you don't know, the BIPC, which is holding this event here at the British Library, has been doing these startup days since 2016, but the BIPC has been going since 2006. So we're soon to celebrate 20 years in this business. It's been like a business of its own if you think about it. Yeah. So we know a few things here, you know. But welcome once more to Startup Day 2024 and to the Inspiring Entrepreneurs, where we're here to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. So if you are an entrepreneur here, raise your hands. I'm one, two. Rashid, raise yours.
Yep.
Come on now.
Yep, the hands are going straight up.
Come on now.
Yep.
I was even speaking to a very young lady today. I won't embarrass her too much, but a very young lady today. She's probably the youngest entrepreneur in this house. And I don't want to embarrass her, but if you see her, you will know. So I wanted to say welcome to you, young lady. Really good to have you here. So we've been doing these Inspiring Entrepreneurs in person since 2022, actually. But the British Library's business and IP centres, what I love about it as an entrepreneur is that it's having that space and that place where you as an entrepreneur can meet with other entrepreneurs, you can network, you can get ideas, you can understand about your business and what you must be doing, get the resources that you need, understand about trademark and all those copyright and patent, I always get it wrong. But you can find out about all of that in a space where it is made for you. So I find that this place is for people from all walks of life. So it doesn't matter age, race, ability, whatever it may be, gender, whatever, it's for you. And I find it's the best place. And so many people I've spoken to, it was here at the BIPC, at the British Library, where they first started their business or they first went to get some inspiration. Now, with the BIPCs, we have a network of BIPCs around the country. A network. So it's not just here at the library. You can see at the British Library, you can see here there's 22 hubs including us. But it's not just the 22 hubs. It's a hub and spoke. So you can see all these locations. They have spokes of libraries, spokes of BIPCs within libraries in that area. So if you're not from London, any non-Londoners, no shade to you, but any non-Londoners, please just give me a wave so I can try and see you. Oh, non-Londoners. Oh. No, I'm lying. We love you.
And I think many of them may well even be joining us tonight, right?
There's some joining tonight. So some of the BIPCs in Greater Manchester and Norfolk. So welcome. Give them a round of applause. They purposely held an event because that's the thing. It's a national network. So we've got a network of libraries and they are hosting Startup Day within the national network, doing their own events as well as logging into this event tonight. There's others logging in as well. So those who are live streaming, they are also online. So I want to say welcome to you as well. Thank you for joining us. You're going to be most welcome. You're going to have the time of your life tonight because our speaker tonight, woohoo, the two of them together. I can't wait. I can't wait. But so just want to introduce you to tonight. To remind you that the Business and IP Centre, we have workshops, we have webinars, we have one-to-ones, we have resources with our reference library, we have, networking events, we have speed mentoring going on right.
Inventors clubs,
Inventors Club on Monday.
Masterclasses, the whole lot.
Kickstart your business, a growth club, there's so much. So do make sure to come and use the services even from tomorrow. Don't wait. Yeah. Don't think about leave it till next time. Do it today. Your best time, as Charlie Bigham said earlier, that the best time to start business is today, which still trying to, I'm like, wow. But he says that. So I'm like, it's a ripe time for you. So go for it.
And better than ever, because now so many of the resources can be accessed online. So there's a whole series of things that you can also access online as well as going on site.
And if I can say a little bit, you can say I'm a little bit biased, but I think this is one of the best places to start. And here is why. Because we have surveys, so there's feedback forms you've probably given. Those forms give us crucial data and information. And it tells us that you're more likely, from our recent reports, it says you're more likely to be successful if you use our services. No lie, no lie. That's what it's saying. That 90% of our businesses, they're still running after 3 years compared to over 50% across the board. So that tells you something. Use our services. We are here for you. We're here to support you. And we support a lot of people from underrepresented communities within business. Women, like I said, gender, race, ability, everything. We support everybody from all walks of life. So once again, I want to shout out to those on our national network who are logging in, our BIPC national network, those who are logging in just online today, those, London, across the network, across the country. And just want to say thank you all once again for coming. Tonight, one last thing about today, we do have a prize giveaway. So if you were here earlier and you missed out, this may be your chance. And we have, about 5. Sorry, we split one of them into 2. Hope you don't mind, my darling. I know, really cheeky. But we know so many people want a little piece here. So we got 5 gifts to give away. Not even 5, 6. 7 even, because Denise is going to give us some as well. So you guys are so lucky tonight, online and in the room. We'll have that chance to grab a prize. But you need to fill out those feedback forms before the end of the session. So I'm going to hand over to you, Rashid.
Thank you very much.
Did I forget anything?
No, I think, there is one thing. Not only do they get all of that, for those of you who are on site, we have got a drinks reception with canapes afterwards. So please, that's another incentive to fill in the feedback forms before you start drinking, if you can drink. And don't forget to the hashtag BIPC Startup Day and hashtag Inspiring Entrepreneurs. We want to see lots of pictures. We want to see how you felt about tonight.
So glad to have you up here with me then.
Delight to be here. So shall I say a few words about the person who's going to be interviewing the person who we all know?
Yes, let's do that.
Right. So, of course, we all know that our special guest is Sara Davies, right? Dragon's Den fame and all the rest of that. And I know we're in for a great treat. And I want to introduce the person who's going to be in conversation with her in a fireside chat. Denise Nurse, many of you may know her as a TV presenter of the likes of Escape to the Country. You may have also seen her on Morning Live. And who else is on Morning Live? Sara Davies as well. But Denise is also an entrepreneur herself. She set up a very, very successful business for lawyers. She mentors businesses. She inspires people. I've had the pleasure to work with her personally. She's a star. She's a real diamond. And she's going to just lead us into a wonderful, warm, cosy chat this evening. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the wonderful Denise Nurse.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Yes. Hold on, I've got a mic on, so can you still hear me if I'm over here? Yeah, is that better? Wonderful. Okay. Who was here today for the Startup Day? Oh, amazing. How are you feeling? Buzzing still? Yes. And welcome to all those who've just joined. Now, I'm going to take a moment to introduce our special guest today. Yes, you're here because you already know who she is. You're already inspired by her, I'm sure, and you're super excited to learn from her for what she has to say. But you may not know all the facets of her journey, and that's what we're going to get a chance to delve through and meander through and learn from together tonight in this conversation. Sara Davies MBE is the founder and creative director of Crafters Companion. And for me, she's a woman after my own heart. She's a trailblazer, she's visionary, she's entrepreneurial, and she's super generous. She just wants to give back and share, which is why you see her in all these different facets of her life. But it started by being born to entrepreneurial parents, and she established her business while she was at university. Can you believe it? Studying business management at New York University. In her university bedroom, that's where she spotted a gap in the market, and that tells you something about this woman. Shrewd, she's insightful, she's watching, she's learning, and she's been doing that for a long time, and I think we're going to get a lot from her tonight on that note. So university bedroom, and she launches her first business in the craft world. Yes, the enveloper, that's the one. She secured a spot on the TV shopping channel Ideal World. TV shopping channels. Who's been part of those? Who's bought something off of a TV? Yes, we've all done it, right? Well, I've got to say, it's 19 years, isn't it? 19 years that business has been going, but she started out on that Ideal World. And a story I hope we hear a bit more about tonight, but it was an instant hit. An instant hit, 8,000 units sold in the first an hour of programming. Yes. How do you do that? Can't wait to find out. Well, look, this demand led to the founding of that business. So many innovative products have led from it. They've expanded, they are global. Now it's gone beyond the paper craft products into sewing, needlecraft. It really has made a mark on that industry. And now they've even got their own brand of art materials, Spectrum Noir. I like the name. Very good. So look, Sara, as you may know, then has a lot of accolades that have come to her, and rightly so and deserved. In 2016, she was presented with her MBE in Her Majesty's Birthday's Honours List for services to the economy. And in 2019, she became the youngest ever dragon in Dragon's Den. Yes! She's unstoppable, if you can't tell. Absolutely unstoppable. She is not stopping. She's had this wonderful book, which I have devoured. I don't know about you, if you love business books, you have to read this one. And there's another one coming out. There's a business show coming out. It's all about entrepreneurs and IP. We'll hear more about that. And she's just got back from the Himalayas. My goodness, she is unstoppable. And on top of all of that, she is passionate, she is driven about sharing her expertise with aspiring entrepreneurs, those coming up along the way, and that's why she's here tonight. As Sara says, we can all make it, so let's welcome her to the stage so we can have a conversation. Come on in.
Do you know what? I feel like I've got so much I want to share. I'm like, Craig, you've only given us 90 minutes.
They haven't given us...
to talk fast. I do talk fast, but don't worry. And also, I'm kind of here for you. So yes, Denise has got a great idea of what she wants me to talk about. I've got some ideas of what I want to talk to you about. But also, we've built in loads of time for questions. So if you're sat here listening to me and you're thinking, this is probably the one chance in my life I'm going to ask that dragon how she did this, ask the question, right? I am here for you guys. Nothing's off limits. Heart on the sleeve, happy to talk about whatever you want. So,
thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Take a seat. Absolutely. And we will be taking questions for those who are watching us virtually as well, so everyone can participate. So hold on to those questions and think about them. OK, but I would like to start, as we go back to the beginning.
Oh, right.
Yep. You say that you came from a normal family, normal village.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's pretty normal. And then you go off to university to study business. Your parents are both entrepreneurial.
Well, I kind of went off to university so that I could learn how to do business from a textbook, so I could come back and show me dad how it should be done. It was the actual motivation. So my mum and dad had the wallpaper and paint shop in our village. And my dad, because he's a little bit old-fashioned like this, always assumed, this is why I do so much work with women in business, my dad assumed because he had daughters and not sons, that there wouldn't be anybody interested in taking over the family business. My God, how wrong me and my sister proved him. My sister now runs that family business, actually, after 40 years. So anyway, so my plan was, I knew I was really interested in business, but whenever anyone asked what did I want to do when I grew up, I would never use a big fancy word like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I was from a little pit village in the northeast. We didn't use big fancy words like that. But I knew, I'd seen my mum and dad work so hard. And if you're in this room today, you get it, okay? Running a business, it's not a career choice, okay? It's a way of life. And you've got to be eyes wide open to the sacrifices. It is bloody hard work, but the rewards that can come with it are off the chart. And my dad drilled into me, if you're going to work that hard, kid, you do it for yourself. And so I always knew, right, I'm cut out for this life. I want to do this. But Craig, my dad's so old-fashioned, clearly in his thinking. So I'm going to go off to university, I'm going to learn it all from a textbook, and I'm going to come back, take over that family business and show them how it should be done. The irony was, I did one of those degrees where you do a couple of years studying and then you go out into the big wide world for a year and then you come back in your last year. And it was in that year of working that I had all these ideas. I got exposed to the craft industry, had a head full of magic. What you'll learn with me is if I have an idea, we're doing it yesterday, right? So in my head, it couldn't wait until I graduated. 9 months, so much could happen in 9 months and the opportunity was there and now. So I decided that I would juggle starting the business while I was in my last year of university. And so I turned my university bedroom into a bit of an office, got the other kids who were living with us to help work with me. And I did all of that kind of as a side hustle from my main university studies, knowing fine well this was just a little bit of a nice to do, and I'd graduate in the summer, come back home, and I'd take over the family wallpaper and paint shop. And actually, by the June of the following year, when I'd gone back to university in that September, October time, started the business, by the time we got back to June, my business was bigger than the wallpaper and paint shop that had been going for 25 years. So I kind of came home. My dad made as a little office in the shed, basically, is what it was. And I decided, well, I'm going to give this craft industry a go. I've got nothing to lose, have I not?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's quite a big moment, though. I mean, watching your parents work really hard, have their own business, and then starting your own and coming home and having that moment where I've already created something bigger than my parents have created. What was that like for you?
Do you know what? I think it was a little bit easier for me than other people have it, okay? So there's a big difference, as a lot of you will appreciate, between starting a business when you are a student, you've got no money to your name, and so you've got naught to lose, right? If it all goes belly up, I'm just moving back in with my mum and dad, right? I don't have a mortgage to pay. I don't have dependents. I'm going to give it a damn good go. And if it all doesn't work out, doesn't matter. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I kind of went into the whole starting my own business with that little bit of a carefree attitude. And I didn't have money when I started up. And it seems to be one of these myths of people think you need to have tens of thousands of pounds to get going. I didn't. I had £5,000 of savings. That's all I had. That's what I started the business with. And everything was just reinvesting the money that we made. And yes, I wanted to do this. And this was going to cost £100,000, but I didn't have £100,000. So instead I'd do this. And this would lead to that, to then I'd have the money to do this step. And I'm always a big believer of if you want to retain control in your business, that's a brilliant way to do it. Yes, that might be the big vision of where we're going, but taking them small steps to get there means you can stay in control of the business. And I didn't have to answer to banks, and I didn't have to answer to investors. I only had to answer to myself. And I think that was so freeing. And that is what made me gung-ho and go for it. And I look back now, and now I'm a parent, and I'm a mortgage holder. And actually, there's 250 mortgages get paid every month as a result of the decisions I make now. You know, that's a lot more responsibility, and you feel a different sense of pressure then. So if there's anything I always encourage people to do, if you are in that lucky situation where you are able to start a business when you don't have those chains around your neck, there is no better time to start it. And I know not everybody thinks. A lot of people go out in the big wide world and then want to start a business when they're a bit older. But I just think we've got to encourage our young people to get into entrepreneurialism as well.
Absolutely. One of the things you've talked about helping you at that beginning stage, as well as having an entrepreneurial background in your family, was something called Business Link. At the time,
Business Link. Yes.
Who remembers Business Link? Yay! Yes. And nowadays we have accelerators, we've got online forums, we've got all these different areas. We've got the British Library Business and IP Centre. What would you say to young entrepreneurs or those starting out now about the need for that sort of support and how to decide where to go, what to choose?
Yeah. So listen, you don't know what you don't know. That's the biggest thing. And you haven't got a clue, but you don't know what you need to know. And what I found was I went along to Business Link in the same way that you guys have all come along tonight. And what you've got to remember is the team of people that are here have been put here to help you succeed. And they know what you don't know. And they don't know the answers to your questions, but they know what questions you need to ask. And then they will hold your hand and take you in the right direction. So what it was for me at Business Link, I had an idea. So you'd mentioned it, and I was so proud that you pronounced it right, the enveloper. So my idea that I had was, and I don't know how many of you have heard of it before, but basically I was in the craft industry. Particularly, I was in the handmade card section of the industry. So you've got thousands and thousands of crafters really into making handmade cards. And I felt like I'd spotted a gap in the market that all of these crafters would love to make handmade envelopes for their handmade cards. And I know you all sat there thinking, who wants to make a bloody envelope? And it costs 10p, right? However, you wouldn't give your friend a beautiful present that you'd bought and wrap it up in newspaper, right? And that was always my sell to the crafters. You've made this beautiful card. You're going to put it in a plain white or in a manila envelope that's the wrong size. You could make a beautiful envelope in exactly the right matching paper, and look how beautiful it looks. It's exactly the right size. As soon as I've got that sell, sold them on the idea of I want an envelope. And my dad's an engineer, so it's my dad who'd helped me work out how to make a prototype version of this enveloper. And I knew I was onto something, you know, and we'd done so much research. I mean, the internet wasn't even that big back then, but even going to the library and looking things up, and there didn't seem to be anything like that out there. And I knew I needed a patent, but I didn't know what a patent was, how to go about getting one. And I'd randomly got talking to some bloke in a pub. I don't know how.
I can imagine how, Sarah.
Randomly got talking to some bloke in a pub who says, I'll write a patent for you for 500 quid, right? And so this guy writes us me patent, sends it off to the patent office. Now, you'll hear me talk on Dragon's Den a lot about the patents. Anytime it's a product with a patent, I'm in there like a hawk, right? Because and a lot of people don't understand. So how patents work, right? To give you a really quick kind of, Craigie, I'm taking your job.
No,
I
want you to go through this because my background is an IP lawyer, amongst many other things, and I used to do talks here, and we talk about the basics of IP, and patents are always one of those areas which is like a big mystery, isn't it? It's like, but how does it actually work? And doesn't that just take a long time? You don't have to have technical drawings, and it all seems very scary, and I think people then don't do anything. So this is a piece to get your notepad out and take some notes, trust me.
So I take it right down into layman's terms, okay? If you've got an idea, okay? Don't talk to anybody about it until you've filed your patent. Nobody. Not your neighbour, not your best friend, not the dog, right? Certainly don't be going to a trade show and talking to people at trade shows or anything like that, right? Now, the good thing is about filing for a patent is it's very inexpensive, right? People think patents cost a fortune. To file a patent is very, very little. And the whole idea is you could just do your own little drawings and do your own write-up yourself. So that for somebody who has no money, is not getting started, nothing, you can pull all this information together in this support there on the patent at the patent office, and you can send off your application to the patent office. And then what happens is you get what's called your filing date. And what that is that's a letter from the patent office that says, yes, we have received your application. It is now the 19th of November. Your filing date is the 19th of November 2024, right? Once you have that filing date, you're protected, okay?
The British Library will help.
The British Library will help you do all of that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So you can so you can do this really inexpensively. Now, the reality is, are you ever going to go into litigation against a patent that you've just done yourself on the back of a fag package? Probably not. We're going to go and get a bit of help, right? But for a lot of people who say, I haven't got money to start a business, I can't pay thousands and thousands of pounds to a lawyer to help me with this, that's a brilliant way to get started. Once you've got that filing date, you can go and talk to people about your idea, knowing that you're protected. So you can go to Dragon's Den and pitch it to the dragons. Or you can go and pitch it to other investors, or you can show it at a trade show. And in my case, I was able to then tell people about my enveloper and say, are you interested in selling it? Because if you are, I'll make it. And you get this 12-month grace from the patent office to give you that time to find out, is this commercially viable, right? And actually, if you haven't quite worked it out in 12 months, you can pay for an 18-month extension. But you've got that little bit of time to work out, is this a commercially viable opportunity? And then if it is, right, I'm going to do some work, I'm going to engage a patent attorney, they're going to help me polish off, make this a really good patent application, because now it's something that we can really stand behind if we ever need to litigate against that in the future. But I think it's that big myth of people think they need something. But let me tell you a story story about when it was my first season on Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
And there was an amazing product called Flush Brush, right?
Great name.
Great name. And it was a toilet brush that you kept the head in the loo and you got the stick. So you clipped the stick in, cleaned your toilet, took the stick out but left the head in, and then as the water flushed, it would clean it, right? Brilliant. And my first question, have you got a patent on this? Well, yes, he did. So he'd done the whole thing I told you about. He got his filing date. Brilliant, right? But he'd gone 12 months and had no interest in the product. He'd showed it at a few trade shows, he'd talked to people, had no commercial interest, decided not to bother, right? So he just let it go and thought there's no opportunity here. Then randomly, someone from Dragon's Den had found his business, thought this seemed brilliant, invited him to come on the show. So he comes on the show, pitches it. So when I say, oh, have you got a patent? Yes, I have, because he's got a filing date and he's applied for this. Problem is, his filing date, the 12 months has passed. And he didn't declare that in the den. So he got home after having been offered a nice lumpy 50 grand off Sara Davies and immediately went to try and refile that patent and say, yes, I've done it. Don't worry, it's just to tell you that I'm going to be talking, you're going to be listening. It's got the alarm going off. So he thought, oh, now I've had the interest, I'm now going to ring up and I'm going to extend, or I'm going to do the next bit. It's too late.
Yeah.
That filing date is gone, and it had gone by 3 or 4 months. They'll let you give a bit of grace on a couple of weeks, but 3 or 4 months, and he was devastated.
And those kind of mistakes are why you share so much, aren't they?
Yes.
To stop people making those kind of mistakes. But you've got so much wisdom from experience now, and from, as you say, mentors. Going back though, at that beginning point when you're trying to work it out, you've got this idea. Were there moments, or are there moments still now, when you ever felt imposter syndrome, like I don't belong here, or I don't really know what I'm doing, or is this kind of fire in you what's just got you past that?
No, I think you probably all look at me and see this big, outwardly confident, loud, bold person, and that's actually my protective mechanism. So I was the kid who used to stand on the school playground on my own. I can remember my mum and dad said they would see me walk out to the bus stand and stand on the bus stand because I was too shy and nervous to go and talk to the other kids on the bus stand because I was really intimidated by them. You know, I wasn't the cool kid at school, but I wasn't quite the geeky crowd. I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. And so when I was older and once I started the business, every room that I was in, I felt like I wasn't good enough to be there. And I felt like I was either the only woman in the room, or the only young person in the room, or the only one in manufacturing in the room, or the only person who sounded like this, which to a lot of people means I'm not as good as they are because I've got this wonderful accent. So whatever room I was in, I was the minority. And so I used to pretend. I used to try and put this fake persona on, and I used to think, what do I need to be good enough to be in that room? And it meant that I was putting on a posh voice, or I was telling a different story and I was talking up certain things. I used to power dress. I used to live in these structured LK Bennett dresses because I thought that was the equivalent, that's what I had to do. And I remember my husband saying to us one day, he's like, oh, which hat have you got on today? Which Sarah's coming out today? Because I was never confident enough to be the Sarah that I was. I was always trying to be the Sarah that I thought somebody else felt I needed to be. And it wasn't until I got to my early 30s that I started to have the confidence in myself and my own ability. And I think it really just came with time and becoming more successful. And the more successful I became, the more I started to think, do you know what? You're bloody lucky to have me in that room. Yeah? And I think that's but you need to get there yourself, don't you? And now I turn up to places and I just think, do you know what? If you don't think I'm right to be in this room, then I don't want to be in this room anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm going to turn up as me. And if that means that I turn up in a bright pink cardigan and a leopard print dress, because that's me, that's what I'm going to do. And you'll take me as I am, and this is what you want to, but this is what you wanted to come and speak to people tonight. I'm just so pleased I found that in my 30s, because I speak to a lot of women, especially in their 50s and 60s, and still haven't got there by then. And I think, what a bloody crying shame. And I just think it's being you, but being unapologetically you. And it's not me going out and being like, oh, yes, this is me. I'm being me, and I'm being quietly confident about the person I am. And I think it just comes with more success. But you need to surround yourself with other people that are going to continue to really give you that message.
Yeah.
Because for me, I was in rooms of people where there wasn't other women like me. There wasn't other young people like me. So I never felt like I fit in. And I think this is why representation is so important. And I feel such a responsibility to be a role model, because I want other people like me to look and think, well, if that's how Sara Davies does it, that's how I'm damn well going to go and do it as well.
Thank you, Sara. I think that message, it comes across so passionately and is so important. There are so many people from different walks of life. Coming from East London myself, my accent and changes. Yep. It has changed. I can get a bit cockney, I can get a bit posh when I need to. And you find coping mechanisms. And I think that is important to share. It's not, you don't necessarily always have the confidence, but you've got to put the confidence on.
Yeah.
And while you're on your way to getting it. You've mentioned there, some of the maybe challenges that being a woman, being from a certain area, having a certain accent, those sorts of things. I've been speaking to some of the young entrepreneurs, and something that came up was about the reception from business advisors and investors to inventions and ideas that might be deemed women's ideas. So, oh, I've got a nail product I want to work on. Oh, is that tech? No, we're only investing in tech. Did you get that kind of pushback wanting to go into the crafting world, or was that not an issue for you?
Oh, yeah. Do you know, I can remember it was one big business award, and somebody from it was one of the big financial institutions had approached me, wanted to put me forward for this business award. And I tell you, I'm pretty sure at the time I was thinking, well, you've only picked us because I'm a girl, and there's no other girls, is there not? And, you're ticking a box, putting me in this room. And I remember being in this room, and there was 14 finalists from the Northeast, and there was 13 lads and me, right? And so I turned up in my structured little black dress, ready with my heels on, ready to go, okay? And I was putting the brave face on. I was faking it till I made it, pretend. I wasn't feeling it, but I was pretending I was feeling it. And I thought, I'm going to work the room and I'm going to network, right? And every time I walked up to somebody and they'd say, oh yeah, what do you do? And as soon as I started saying, I'm in the craft industry, right? You could see the eye rolls. And you could see that they're there in the moment talking to me, but they're actually looking past me to see who's the other important person that they can talk to instead of me. And I just felt so unwanted and unwelcome. And I worked that whole room and I felt like nobody at the other contestant, nobody saw me as competition. Even though we're all up for the same business award, I think everybody just dismissed me. And I've had that all my life. I remember going to university, I was the one that people assumed would underperform because I sounded like this, and I'd come from a regular comprehensive school and not a private school. So I feel like I've dealt with this all of my life. And I remember now, I went in, but the judges, they took notice of me. And I had a damn good story to tell, because my envelope had done brilliant, and I could talk about this, and I was passionate about that, and I can sell anything to anybody, me. So when it's getting up there and I'm selling myself to those judges, I was on it. And I always remember the awards, the national finals were in London. We went to Mayfair. That's the blue one on the Monopoly board, so it must be posh, right? This is from someone who was a right country bumpkin and never came to London when I was little, right? So I was going to this posh affair in Mayfair, and they give us 2 free tickets to the awards. So it was just me and my husband. It was like £1,000 a table, so clearly it wasn't taking me mum and dad or anything. And I turned up, and there was a lad who I'd met on that very first day who'd been one of the eye roll guys. Yeah. And he obviously felt pretty confident about winning this award because he'd bought a whole table, brought all his friends and family, right? And I remember when they announced the award, and then they announced it was me that had won it, I had to saunter past his table to the stage, and the look on his face of sheer horror, he's staring as if to say, what the, and I just walked back, and I put my hand on his shoulder, and I just said, oh, well done on getting this far.
And that's how you do it, mic drop moments. Sarah, you are clearly a brilliant storyteller, and you've got that kind of passion and boldness about you. I mean, you were on a TV shopping channel, you know, many, many years ago, and now we've got the TikTok generation, everyone's online.
Yep.
How do you continue to kind of innovate and leverage your access to an audience, and what do you say to people now in this world?
So, I mean, people think it's antiquated and outdated TV shopping, right? I can tell you now, I've been on QVC this morning, hugely successful show. That business has had 5 consecutive quarters of growth on top of each other. This is, people buy from people, and people buy into stories. And I think this is why I'm so good at storytelling in my every life, because I've done 20 years of telling stories on TV shopping. And what people buy, they're not buying that enveloper, right? They're not, because actually if you woke up one day and you needed an envelope, you're probably going to buy a pack of 20 envelopes for $2.99 from Hobbycraft, right? You're not going to spend $14.99 on this really complicated wooden instrument, let's call it, with the photocopied instructions, like, what? Right? But when I'm selling the dream, when I'm stood there on air pointing out, tell me you haven't spent 3 hours making that beautiful card and you're going to put it in a plain white envelope that's not even the right size, when you could do and put it in this beautiful matching envelope that looks incredible, that only cost 18 pence, because, I mean, that I can sell. I'm selling the story, not the product. We were always taught in TV shopping, you sell the sizzle, not the sausage.
Yes.
And I think the trick is, and I do so much coaching now in teaching people how to sell. I've done loads of work this year with Avon. So Avon entrepreneurs, people who have their own little Avon side hustle, I've been coaching them and teaching them how to sell, but I'm not teaching them how to sell the Avon products. I'm teaching them how to sell themselves.
Yes.
Because when they can develop a really deep relationship with that customer, and whether it's door to door, or in my case, shopping TV through the camera, whether it's on TikTok Live and you're doing it that way, whatever it is, you're endearing yourself to that audience, and you're creating a deep, it's all about relationship selling, and you can go on from there to sell anything. And I just think you can learn so much. If you are really passionate about developing your business, you've got to be able to sell, right? As much as people will all tell you the most important thing is you've got to know your numbers, I would argue more than that, you've got to be able to sell. And I can tell you now, the best place to go and learn how to sell shit is watching the shopping channels, right? Trust me, if you go and give yourself 2 hours to do some homework, I challenge you to get through that 2 hours without buying something. Yeah? Something you never knew you needed, but your life's going to be better as a result of it. And that is what we do. We are there to create a deep and meaningful relationship and to sell you something. And I think and I spent years and years studying the people who were the top of their game. And even now, and I'll stand up here and I'm not shy to say it, nobody can touch my numbers. There is nobody globally can come even close to hitting the numbers I can hit when I'm selling craft products, right? But that is because I'm always after that. I'm always trying to get better and better and better. And I studied my competitors until I was better than them. Then I studied people in other industries. And then I studied, if I'd watched loads of UK shopping telly, I started watching the US shopping channels so I could learn from them. And I was constantly striving, what are the techniques? How is that person making me feel?
Yes.
And how is that making me want to buy something?
Yeah.
That is everything in people, and you can learn so much from watching them.
You can. It's one of my favourite Maya Angelou quotes, that people remember how you made them feel.
Yes. They'll never remember what you said.
They won't remember what you said.
They'll remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, and then they'll buy something from you, which is what we're all here in business trying to do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sara. You've been so generous sharing there. We are going to be coming for some questions soon. Start thinking about things you want to look. I can see your little hand up there. No, you're getting very excited. We will be coming for them, and I will be getting an iPad with some questions coming soon. Before I talk about your current projects, because as I mentioned earlier, there's some exciting things coming up, and I'd love to hear about those. We often talk in business about being able to fail and fail forward, and you know, success is built on a pile of failures. What's your take on that? Do you even believe in the word fail?
Yeah, it's a really difficult word, and I think failure is fine when you look back on it retrospectively. In that moment, it's bloody awful. And you don't want to acknowledge it as failure. You certainly don't want to talk to other people about the fact that you are failing at what's going on. So we either sweep it under the carpet or we bury our head in the sand or whatever. But it's when you have that confidence to look back and say, that was a failure. That was, you know, maybe I didn't want to admit it in the moment, but that was a failure. And I can tell you now, you will learn 10 times more from any failure than you will from a success. And I think you know, and I've read every bloody business person's autobiography that's going, right? And it seems to be this common thread of people seem to start a business and then fail and then learn from that failure and go on to create something bigger and better. And people kept saying to me, oh, you're really lucky that you've never had the failure in you. You know, you started the business and the business has gone from strength to strength. And yes, I am, but I didn't learn as much from it. And I'll be really honest now and tell you, the last couple of years in business, Jesus, it's been hard. And I've made some big, bad mistakes. And I've failed in some really big ways. And I've learned more in the last 18 months than I have in the 18 years before that. And it's that, but it's acknowledging that. And do you know what's really powerful is when you can talk to people about it. You know, I had one of my Dragon's Den investments. She came into my office and it was about 18 months ago, and she was avoiding me. And I could tell she was avoiding. She's one of my favourite ones. I write about her in the book quite a lot, actually. And she was avoiding me, and I knew things were really difficult with the business. And so I invited her up to my office to come in for a meeting. She was really sheepish when she came in. And when I broke down past the small talk, I got to the fact that the business was really struggling. You know, and she'd made a couple of bad decisions and she'd had a couple of failures. And she was terrified to tell me about it, and she was embarrassed to admit it. And as soon as she told me about them, I said, let me tell you what's going on in my business at the moment, Helen. And I started sharing with her where I was struggling and where I was failing and what hurdles I was overcoming. She started crying and she felt so relieved. And I said, Helen, it's bloody difficult times at the moment. Anyone who's telling you they're doing absolutely brilliant and flying, they're lying. They really are. They're a load of codswallop, right? Business is really tough at the moment. And, you know, just the fact that you're still here and the business is still here now, even though you've had some failures, that's an achievement. And you need to lean into this and not bury your head in the sand and talk about it. And she felt so much better, the fact that I'd been open and honest and talked with her about it. So I then encouraged her to go and talk to some of my other investments so that they could support each other and hopefully learn from each other's mistakes instead of all having to make the same set of mistakes over and over. So failure is absolutely a part of the journey, and I encourage people, you know, just acknowledge that that's what it's going to be and discuss that with people as you're going through it.
Yeah, so all my mentors are people I've never met, like Oprah Winfrey. She says, surround yourself with people who are going to lift you higher. Yep. I heard another entrepreneur recently, a successful entrepreneur, say, surround yourself with people who are going to challenge you. What's your take on that? Because I love what you were just saying about surround yourself with people who are going to listen, support you.
I love your, I'm going to come back to it as well, the idea of invisible mentoring. It's one of my favourite concepts. But when we talk about, I got lost on me thread of invisible mentoring now. I'm going to talk about the invisible mentor and then get me to come back to that one as well. No problem. People ask me this all the time. They come and say, can you mentor me, right? I would love to. But if I had to individually, one-on-one mentor every person that asks me this, I just can't do it. Now, you talked there about the fact that Oprah Winfrey's mentored you. I can tell you the reason I've got to be so good at TV shopping is I've been mentored by all of the big TV shopping people in the world who've never met me. Never met me, but I've studied them and I've thought about and quite often I sit and I imagine if you were sitting next to me, what would you be asking me and what would you be doing? And I always say if I look, I've been mentored by 2 dragons in my time, right? So Tuga Sullivan is one of the current dragons at the moment. He's a lovely out too, Uncle Tuga. So he was there on my very first, he did my screen test for Dragon's Den. And so I had a chat with him when I did on my first day, and I said, Tuga, I've done a lot of TV before, I've done a lot of investing before, but I've never done investing on TV, so this is brand new to me, and I feel like I need a mentor, right? Now, it's all right saying to someone, can you mentor me? But actually what you're saying is, can you give me feedback? I'm giving you permission to give me feedback, right? And so it's so much easier if you can create an environment where that mentor can give you feedback. So what I said to him was, after every pitch that we do, can we come back to the green room? I'll stick the kettle on, I'll make us a cuppa, and then can you tell me what I did good in that pitch and then one thing I could have done better, right? So I didn't just say, will you mentor me? And I didn't say what that looked like. I actually gave him something tangible. I want you to do this every time. And then after every pitch for the first few days, I put the kettle on. He was totally teed out by the end of it. But that's what it is. And I'd created that environment for him to be able to do that. Now, can you imagine, a couple of years after me, Stephen Bartlett started, right? And I took Stephen for dinner the night before we did our first showing and whatnot, and I shared all of my knowledge and experience with him. But at no point did he say, because most people won't in their life, say, can you mentor me? Or can you give me some feedback? He didn't. I gave him all of the advice I could up front. But could you imagine if we'd got to the end of the first pitch and I'd walked out of the set and I'd go, right, Stephen, look, put the kettle on, make us a cuppa, and I've got some feedback for you. You could have done better in that. Like, I wouldn't dream of doing that. But for me to get better as a dragon, I needed that mentorship. I needed that feedback. So I asked Tuka to do that, create an environment. So that is physical mentoring, I always say. And then if I look at invisible mentoring, Duncan Bannatyne was a huge, somebody, he's from our area in the northeast, and I'd read his book, and I can't remember what his book said. I can remember a little bit of what he did, but I can't remember. But I can remember reading it in my early 20s, feeling like, wow, he's not exactly brains of Britain, this guy. And he certainly hasn't grown up with a silver spoon in his mouth. So he's had no opportunities in life that I couldn't have. And look at what a huge success he's made of himself. And if he can do it, there's no reason I can't do it.
Absolutely.
And that's how I felt. When I read that book, that is how I felt. So it's not that he'd given me the roadmap of success and how to do it, but he'd made me believe I'm just like you and I can succeed if I work as hard as you. And I'm not frightened of the hard work, but I believed, success wasn't just for people that had been born into privilege or of a different social hierarchy. Regular people like Duncan, like me, could do that. So he was my invisible mentor. Tuka was my up there mentor. So I always say, when you're looking at mentoring, think about both types. But if you're looking for a physical mentor, give them permission. Don't just say, can you mentor me? Paint a picture of what that looks like and how you would like them to do that.
I love that. And obviously that's what you've put into this. If I said before, I'm going to say it again, because this book, We Can All Make It, that's what I take from it. The audio version is really good as well, because it's like you're in conversation with wonderful Sara. There is a moment in that book, there are several moments, it's great. There's the moment, and I don't want to give away everything, but where your pattern gets challenged, or those moments that you've talked about when it's really hard and something hard happens. Where's the grit come from within you to keep going?
There wasn't a lot of grit that night, I can tell you. Yes, so the enveloper, which I did the IP, applied for that, had the support from Business Link, massively improved my patent application. I still use the same patent attorney now 19 years later. She looks after all of my Dragon's Den investments, any businesses I always recommend it to. She still holds my hand through thick and thin. But I remember Helix, who make stationery, protractor. They decided they wanted to diversify from the stationery market into the craft market. And they obviously looked at my product and went, well, that's a bloody good product. And then did all of their desk research and thought, well, that's not an overly strong patent. They were looking at the version that I originally filed, obviously. And she's a tiny little 2-bit company who won't have the money to fight us. So commercially, strategically, she's quite easy to pick off. We'll just go, we'll knock off her product, knowing that the risks are, we'll design around the patent, the inventive step in the patent, and hopefully she won't challenge it, but if she does, we'll just go aggressive with it, right? And the thing with patents is, you've got to, and this is what I hadn't appreciated when I set off into this, if you decide to go and challenge, if someone's knocked you off, right, and you decide to go and challenge them and you want to essentially sue them, start on that process, you have to be prepared to follow through. You can't take one step and not be prepared to walk the path. And so what I'd done is, hadn't appreciated or understood any of this. And my advisor was my dad, who's more emotional than I am. And in his eyes, Mr. Helix himself was going after his little Sazzy. And that was just wrong. And it was a David versus Goliath case. And anybody who's anybody, you could look at that enveloper and see that they've knocked it off and they've tried to take advantage of you, kid. So surely that's what the patent office is here to do. They're here to protect the little guys. They're not. They're here to make sure that that doesn't infringe that one paragraph of text in your first claim. That's what they're there to do, right? And so what happens in patent law, when if I stand up and go, hey, you've copied me, I'm not having that, withdraw your product from the market or I'm going to sue you. You make that threat, you've got to be prepared to follow through on it, right? So they come back and say, no, we think that's a load of rubbish. We don't think we're infringing your patent. Bring it on, right? Then I've got to follow through on this, because if I don't, they're now incurring cost. So now what they do, first thing they do is, whoa, hey, we're incurring costs doing this, so now we're going to sue you for the costs that we've incurred, right? And I just remember it just snowballs. Very expensive process and it snowballs. And I remember at the thick of it, I was into it, just snowballing like this for £250,000. £250,000. And that is what I stood to lose based on my legal fees racking up, and then I would have to pay their legal fees back, right? And I'd gone into all of that with my heart and not my head, not understanding about patent law and just believing the right thing will come right in the end, right? Now it did. You know, it did work out all right for me in that. And yeah, I'm spoiling the story now. You have to.
Yeah, no, you still got to read it.
But you'll see we went through mitigation, we arrived at an agreement, and it worked out favourably. They withdrew their products for the market. I've still got 4,500 Helix envelope makers. Kind of bring myself to get rid of them. They're in the attic of the old office.
The things we keep. I won.
But yes, it was a huge learning curve for me because it wasn't personal. Mr. Helix wasn't after me. He wasn't. It was just a board decision. It was a strategy and a risk decision. Just a team of product developers in that business looked at the patent, looked at the size and scale of my company, weighed up the risk of whether or not I'd be able to take them on, and then how much effort they should put into designing around. It wasn't personal, right? It felt personal. And I remember coming home from London. And you remember I told you I wasn't the biggest country bum, I was a big country bumpkin, I wasn't a city girl. So I was coming back from London, having been in court all day, paying tens of thousands of pounds for all of this legal representation, not understanding a bloody word that they say and not daring to ask them to explain that in plain English, because that would be another 10 grand bill I'd get logged with, right? Just accepting I didn't know. And I'd lie on the bed every night and cry, because I didn't know what I was 22-year-old. Nobody had taught me. We didn't do a module on this at university. You know, and I didn't know how to cope, but I would lie on the bed and cry. And as much as that was a really, really difficult chapter in my life, really hard, it taught me that business is not personal. And it taught me how to overcome that. And also, I've gone on to now successfully defend that same patent 6 times.
Yes.
Right? I go into every patent thing now understanding what that looks like, right? I've also had other instances where companies have maybe designed around one of my other patents, and I've looked at it and I've weighed it up, and for all I can tell, they've knocked me off on whatnot. Maybe it's there in America, the patent's not granted in that territory, this is what it's going to cost. I'll weigh up commercially, is it worth me chasing them? Should I set off on that path? And every time it's just a commercial decision. It's not about what's right and wrong. It's not about the heart leading the head. It's just strategically a commercial decision each time. And that's a really great discipline. At least I look back and I think I learned that in my early 20s. Again, a lot of business people don't learn that until it's too late. So, yeah, it's a good chapter, that one.
It's a really good one. It's a good chapter. Now, I said I'd come back to your recent project. So we've got the next book coming out now, haven't we?
Yes.
Yes, so tell us more about this, because you're getting so many insights tonight, but Sara's on a mission at the moment. We've got the book and more. Tell us.
So, you know I like a good story, right? Now, all of the business books that are... Sorry, that's books, for those down south. The business books that I find the most useful are the ones where it's a fable or a story, and then you can learn something from the story. I find them really, really helpful. And I've got loads of stories. I've shared goodness knows how many with you, you know, half a dozen over the last half an hour or whatever. But I've got loads of these, like loads of them in my life. And so I sat down and I worked with an amazing business planner writer, and he managed to get everything out of my head into 52 stories. So the idea is it could be one a week for a whole year, right? Because you don't want too much information. And then also, as you've learnt with me, if I can say it in 10 words or I can say it in 100 words, I'm probably going to say it in 100, right? But I worked with the author that helped me write my autobiography to take my story. So I'd tell the story in half an hour. She'd cement it down to like 600 words, right? So she'd take the essence of the story, de-sarify it, get it down to a manageable chunk. And the idea is I want you to be able to read that in 6 minutes, right? So there'll be a new chapter. You'll hear the story about the enveloper and how Helix knocked us off, but you'll hear that in 6 minutes. And then after you've heard the story, there'll be the takeaway. And then after that, there'll be an exercise that you can work on from that week, right? And I've done that with 52 lessons that I've taken from my 20 years in business. So that's the 6-minute entrepreneur, because I know you're all busy people and you don't want to take more than 6 minutes learning something, right? As much as I'd love to tell you all them stories and more, let's get them into 6 minutes, right? And so that book comes out in January, which I'm very excited. And then because I've got even more stories than the 52 that are in there, I decided to start like a free YouTube channel just where I could share my advice every week. You've been watching it. So every Thursday, for like Business Thursday, so every Thursday I drop a new video on YouTube that's only 6 minutes long with some sort of story from my life that hopefully you can take something away. So we talk about imposter syndrome, or mum guilt, or learnings that I've taken away. We talked about IP and what you can learn from that. So there's already a good, maybe a dozen different videos on there that you can go and watch, and that bank's just building up every week. I've built a community on Instagram. No, I haven't. I've built a community on LinkedIn and also a community on Facebook. I'm yet to learn how you do them on Instagram. And so we've got groups of like-minded people who were then saying to me, Sarah, I'd love to learn more about this or learn more about that, that is driving what new video content I do every week. So, yep, go and have a little look on YouTube at the videos if you want to learn a bit more. And the book, it's actually available to order now, and it'll be out in January.
Coming out in January. But you don't have to wait till then, because you're sitting right here. You got your ticket. Right. So that means it's time for some questions.
Yes.
And I know there was somebody sitting there smiling at me, so I'm going to come to you first. Please tell us your name, and I'll take the iPad for our questions from the virtual audience. And I believe we have a mic coming down here, so we can all hear you clearly.
Hi, I'm Rose. I run a business called Co-Creative Connection. We help the community to co-design and paint murals across London and soon nationally in the world. So I love all your determination and your grit. Like, all of that has been so inspiring and amazing. And when you were saying about QVC, watching that to like learn, what do you think that would be good for service businesses as well when you haven't got that product?
If you've got to sell something, trust me, there's nothing better than watching the shopping channels. And also, best thing you can watch is either competitors in your market, or if there's nobody doing the business quite like what you do, look at how people do the same sort of service, but maybe it's in a different sector, and watch how they do it. I'm a firm believer of you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Right?
Yes.
Everything that you're doing, somebody else has done it, whether it's in a different market, a different sector, a different geography, whatever it is, and watch them and learn from them. If you look at any market, the people who've been more successful are the second movers.
Yeah.
Not the ones who've pioneered something new, the people who've taken and learned from someone else's mistakes so they don't have to make them and they can drive it forward. So yes, I would definitely look at watch QVC, you're going to learn how to sell really, really well. Go back and watch the 11 o'clock show from this morning. You learn it really well. But look at other people, competitors or other markets to learn as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that, you know, back in the day, I used to watch Tony Robbins sell all of his tapes. It's all service, yet he could sell and he could make them into products. So there's so much rich learning that you can get from watching the masters at work.
Watch them, yeah.
Yes. Now, I've seen more hands go up. I saw one down here, and then I'll come back over this way to the back first. No, the mic's right there. Sorry, I'll start up there, and then we'll bring the mic down there. Let's do it that way. Hello.
Hello, my name is Kabir Boijnut. It's Kabir.
Lovely to meet you, Kabir.
Hi, Kabir.
Because that means, do you know what Kabir means? It's the son of poet, he was born can't be a Muslim or a Hindu, it's a son of God, it's the main patron of saint.
Oh, lovely. What's your question, Kabir?
Well, the first thing I'd like to tell you, Sarah, I like about your story, right? Because you know you're very an inspiration to everybody, not just for in the business, but also for everyone around the community. And this is about an example about role modelling. It doesn't matter where you are, where you're coming from. It's all about equal and diversity.
Well said.
And more importantly, right, you really had a really difficult time, but look at the way you're now. You've lost a lot of weight, and also because you look in terrific
I have.
shape.
I've been running lots.
She has.
You're in
I'll take that.
Yes.
listen,
She's
you're
on
really
fire.
in terrific shape. But what I like about you really achieved a lot in your study of business career down at York, and also when you're getting your New Year's honours at MBE about 8 years ago. You're
clearly a super fan. Yeah. Do you have a question you'd like to ask Sara?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Sara, right? I'm currently doing some study on horticultural garden design. Because I've I've been doing portering now for 20 years, so I really need a new career and all that. So what's the best thing when I complete my garden design and all that?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much, Kabir. So how can you get started with a horticultural business? What would you say? You've got a business idea, you want to get started, what's the first step?
So I think if you're getting started with any business, you want to be thinking about what is my unique selling point? Why is someone going to pick me over all those other businesses that are out there, right? And maybe it's you. Maybe it's you're the unique selling point. Maybe it's your style of design, that's the unique selling point. And then you need to build the stories around how we sell that. Right? Once you know your USP, you then build your business plan and your roadmap of, right, I'm going to go out, this is why I'm different, and this is how I'm going to tell people that I'm different, and this is where my groups of customers are, and this is how I'm going to reach them. And I think if you start with a business plan, so many people, to fail to plan is to plan to fail.
Absolutely.
Right? So many businesses say, oh, I'm starting a business, what's your plan? I'm going to see how it goes. Shoot me now, right? You need a business plan to get yourself started, but business plans start with them USPs.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that answer. Now, I'm going to come back to the audience, but let's remember we've got people watching all around the country, and we've got our other IP centres in Manchester and Norfolk joining us as well. So let's have a couple of questions from there. We've got one here. Similar sort of question. I have a few business ideas, 2 to 3. I've done pros and cons, and they're all similar, but I'm stuck on how do I narrow it down to one, and how do I have the confidence to take the first step? So it's like a little step before what you were just saying, like, how do I choose? And this is from Andrea. So, Andrea, thank you very much for that question.
Thank you, Andrea. Right, so what I always say is, it's got to be something you are deeply passionate about, okay? We said earlier, running a business is not a career choice, it's a way of life. So if you are giving this your life, right? If this is becoming like your baby, you've got to be prepared to live, sleep and breathe it. You've got to be passionate about it. You've got to love it. So you've got to look at them 3 ideas and think, which one do I absolutely love? Which one am I prepared to have the sleepless nights, crying on the bed at all hours? Which one of those would I live and die by like that? Because that's the one you can get behind. And I can tell you now, when we're in the den and people come in and pitch their ideas, I've decided within the first 3 or 4 minutes if I'm going to invest in that business.
Yeah.
I know it. And I can tell because of how passionate they are. It's all about the people. I can tell about how passionate they are about that business. And I just think you need to think, okay, 3 great ideas. If all 3 are equally brilliant, then you've got 3 cracking businesses on your hands, right? But you'll know which one of them are you feeling in here.
Which one?
And then in terms of getting started, I'm a big fan of the side hustle. So I'm all about de-risking, okay? I'm married to an accountant. He's the most risk-averse person ever, right? Total opposite of me. But everything is about de-risking. So to me, I was able to start my business as a side hustle while I was at uni, when I had no other risk there. If it is a case of you can still continue with your current job, you've still got the way of paying the mortgage, and you start the business as a side hustle on evenings and weekends, I know that's hard work. I know that's a lot of bloody hours. I know that's going to take it out of you. That's business, right? But if you can do that and you're prepared to do that whilst you're able to keep your full-time job going, then as this takes off, you can start and drop your hours at work, maybe drop to part-time, give up work altogether, but there's no risk because you already know this has taken off. You've got that security, right? I know I've seen by putting 20 hours a week into it that I'm generating this. I'm comfortable that scaling it to 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week, I can build this so you can do it like this. Whereas when people say to me, yep, I'm giving it all up, I've got 2 months' salary saved up and I'm going to start the business, I think, bloody hell, you've got no idea what's coming for you.
You're in for a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Don't burn those bridges yet. Be careful how you leave the boss.
Yeah.
I'm going to take another question from the audience. We had someone just here. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Colette Thompson. I'm a property developer and an investor, and I started as a side hustle whilst I was in mat leave and built up the business.
Perfect.
And just went full-time 3 years ago. Super passionate about helping to close that gender pay gap. We all know about the pay gap, but the pensions gap, the savings gap, and I help that by taking in private investment and helping women to do that. And then the giving back side, one of the things I'm really loving at the moment is I'm supporting a 16-year-old racing car driver, female, trying to move forward. She's called Daniela Sutton. She's incredible. But she's very much facing the exact same stats as all of the women in the room are facing when it comes to investment. So I think it's quite well known that all business investment, only 3% goes to women investment. In race car driving, it's one of the few sports women can go toe-to-toe with a man, and the numbers are identical. She's facing that only 3% is going to female racing car drivers. What advice can you give me and help me to give to her to go out and get that investment and fight for that? We're telling all the stories that we can, but I'm not sure we're telling them in the right places.
Yep. So I remember it was my first day ever in the Den, and there was a streetcar, and it was streetcar food, and they said, right, they did the pitch, and then they said, right, you know, come up and get some food. And Tuka got up and went running first. And I shouted after him, I went, whoa, 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 ladies first. And Deborah barked at me. And she said, we're not ladies and gentlemen here, Sarah. We're all dragons and we're all the same. And she instilled in me from that very first day, there was no difference between Tuka and me. And by me even just saying ladies first, I was accentuating the fact that in some way he was different to me. In this environment, we are 5 dragons and we are all on equal footing. Nobody is better just because of their gender doesn't define them, right? If she, for 1 minute, lets it get into her head, I'm the minority, only 3% of investment is coming from me, I'm pushing water uphill with a fork here, she's going to be on a hiding to nothing. If she knows she's as good as them damn blokes are, she's just got to go and act the same way. As soon as she starts to show that little bit of weakness of she thinks she is different to them, then the investors aren't going to treat her. If she wants to be treated the same as those people, she needs to act the same as those people. And that's what Deborah taught me to do. And it was a really hard lesson, and especially on my first day being backed up by Deborah Mead, and I tell you, it was scary.
Scary.
It was scary. But it was a really valuable lesson, and it really stuck with me, the sentiment behind that. And I think that is what you've got to get to her is, if she's in that victim mentality of, I'm probably not going to get this because I'm a woman, she's not going to get it.
Yeah, she's absolutely not. In the last
Brilliant.
season,
Yeah.
she smashed it and she won a scholarship for the BRSCC, their first ever. I think she was one of 4 females, and well, there were 50 of them all together, so the others were all boys. And she won the first one. She's just smashing it out of the park. And it's our business around her to help her raise that.
Thank you,
Change
Colette.
the narrative so that it's not remotely about her gender.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Brilliant.
I'm going to be a little
Yeah.
bit cheeky.
Yes.
There's a young lady, she's just 11 years old.
Oh, I
She's got
can't
breast
see.
cancer.
Sorry.
Could we get her to us?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't see.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is. I genuinely can't see you. Bless you, darling. I couldn't see you there behind the other person. So yes, of course you can ask a question. Hello. Hi. What do you want to ask Sarah?
What's the most effective marketing strategy?
The most effective marketing strategy, okay? So I find in my world, the most effective marketing strategy, Sara Davies, right? So in your world, I imagine I know exactly who's going to be the most effective marketing strategy. And you know how we talked about it a little bit earlier, you know, especially when you're doing TV shopping, you sell yourself first and the product second. People buy from people. And people really buy into people. And if you look at some of the biggest and most successful brands around the world, the brand is the person, right? Now, I made the choice very early on not to call my business Sara Davies Limited, right? I was Crafter's Companion. But I am the face of my business. The business, we're all synonymous, the same thing, right? I am the queen of crafts, and then that is my business and what I'm selling. And the more successful I become as a crafter, the more successful I will make my business. And so I think really believing in yourself, investing in yourself, and building that up, because nobody will ever sell your business like you. And again, I learned this when I went to QVC in America. I always remember going over there, and they told us there was 3 categories of people. I was doing my training for QVC America. 3 categories of people, right? Now, I just assumed that if you were a business and you wanted to sell on QVC America, if you hired a celebrity to come in and sell your product on air, that would be the absolute pinnacle. That would be the best thing. If you were prepared to pay for it, QVC would love that. Turns out that's their 3rd priority of the top 3, right? The number 1 is they want the founder of that business. They want the authentic storyteller who understands what the need was in the market and how this product is filling that need and how it is unique. And nobody can tell the story better than they can. And if for some reason the founder of that company isn't available, maybe they're too shy to go on TV, or maybe, I don't know, it's an Australian company and they don't want to come to America or something, the second best is always an employee of that company. So somebody who's still equally as vested in that company, maybe he works in the product development department or whatever, but they can authentically storytell. The 3rd one, just paying somebody to endorse that product, is the least authentic of the 3. So I always say, you are your best brand advocate, you are your best marketing strategy. That was a brilliant question.
That's a wonderful question. Do you have a business that you want to start? Do you have a business that you want to start? Yeah. Do you want to tell us what it is? Or is it secret? Has it got to go to the patent office? Okay, yes. Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell her.
You heard it from Sara. Thank you very much. Thank you for that question. Okay, coming back round, I can see... Oh, I'm going to come here first. And then I can see your hand was up there. Okay. And I can see one over there.
Hi, good evening, Sara. My name is Charlene Stewart, and I am a wellness coach. I just want to say to you that I appreciate you just believing in yourself, and people with different accent, like myself, you know, it really promotes that in business. The question I want to ask was, how did you know that that idea that you had was going to be what it is now today? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I didn't know, Charlie. I had no idea. You'll never know, but you've got to believe. And you've got to believe in yourself, because the only way you can ever convince anyone else to believe in you is to believe in yourself. And, you know, even now, if someone said to me 20 years ago, this is where you would be today, I would never in a million years have believed them. But also I like to keep my feet on the ground a little bit, so I'll never let myself aspire or believe that far. I try to keep myself a little bit more humble about things, but I believe that I can do whatever I set my mind to. And that's the beauty of that, you know, believe you can. Don't need to be showy about it. You don't need to tell everybody, yes, I'm absolutely brilliant, I'm going to go and achieve this. But knowing in yourself and having that self-belief is what drives you. And I think, you know, drive, passion, energy, I'll get you anywhere you want to go if you've got that self-belief to go with it.
Fantastic, wonderful. And I think that might link potentially to another question from someone who's watching online. This is Gina. Amazing. Sarah said when she has an idea, she wants it done yesterday. I noted that. I thought, oh yeah, this is someone who gets things done. Personally, I struggle with procrastination. wanting everything to be perfect. Anyone recognise that? Bit of perfectionism in the room? Yep. And it keeps me back from acting on ideas swiftly. Any advice on how to overcome this?
Yes, stop procrastinating.
Yeah. Just stop it.
That's me looking straight down the camera at you there. Look, you've got to get shit done, right? I can't say it any more bluntly than that. You have to get shit done. Sorry for swearing, Pet. Because if you don't, somebody else is going to do it, right? And you will never, ever get something perfect. What's that Pareto principle about, 80-20 or whatever?
Yeah.
Get yourself to 80% of the way there and go for it.
Yeah.
And trust me, yes, no, I can tell you now, my first enveloper, I didn't have the money to tool it up to have it made properly in plastic or anything. We had to make them out of MDF. My dad's mate made them in a joinery firm in the village, and my little sister used to blow the sawdust off and stick the stickers on them. Was it perfect? No, got me to market. Then once I'm in there, then I can go from that and I can learn and I can take on the next iteration. And, business is constantly evolving. You've got to constantly evolve. But if you're going to wait till something's perfect, it's never going to be good enough. Yeah. There's that whole principle of constantly chasing that 1% to get even better and even better, right? If you wait too long to get something perfect, you're not going to have anything to chase, but you're going to have missed the boat. You're just going to watch it sail by. But nobody can hold you to account on that other than yourself.
Absolutely.
So you've absolutely got... Or find somebody who can hold you to account. If you've got a business mentor, or in my case it was my dad, but somebody telling me all the time, no, go and do it now. We're not going to wait till you've finished university to start the business. You've got them ideas, do it now. You're prepared to work evenings and weekends to get that off the ground, go and get it started. No time like the present. Just go for it.
No time like the present. For another question, I said I'd come here next, just at the back. This person here. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies. My name is Daniel. I'm a record producer by trade, but I'm also an innovator of products for the industry. I'm currently working on something that's going to turn the industry on its head, so I can't really say what it is right now, because I'm doing the pattern.
Nice.
However, as a really sort of busy man, I never have time out for years and years. I've been trying stuff, failed at stuff on the side hustle of innovating new products and ideas. How do you manage your time and prioritise that effectively to prevent your burnout and to maintain your passion?
Absolutely brilliant question.
Great.
So when I was younger, so after I finished university, but when I was in the business, I could work all the hours that God sent. I would be in the office at the crack of dawn and I could be still there at 10 o'clock on a night. I had nothing to go home to. I had my boyfriend, became my husband at home, but he understood that the business was my passion. I could put all the hours into it, right? And the more time I had, the more time I would spend in the business, quite often procrastinating, actually. and I had no life. I lived to work. I literally lived to work. And for me, it was having the family, okay? So as soon as I had my first son, all of a sudden, I couldn't spend every hour of every day in the office. I wanted to get home, and I wanted to be at home and spend the time at home. So instead of being able to spend 80 hours a week on the business, I could now only spend 40 hours a week on the business, right? And it's amazing how you learn to achieve 80% of what you were doing in half the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah? When you're forced to do it. When I wasn't forced to do it, I would just waste hours and hours and hours and hours, right? Soon as I had that discipline, then I was able to do it. And now I try, and even though the kids are a little bit older, I try and maintain that discipline of putting things in my diary, and for me, it's coming and doing events like this. This is me taking, and I travelled down this morning, so I've taken the whole day off work to come and be here to do this, right? That work's still got to get done. I've got to just fit it into the other days, right? But I want to come and do this because I know that this is brilliant. And I know how much I'll get from having shared all these stories with you tonight. So I'm making time for it. But this is also me looking after myself. This is me doing something in my life other than just my work, right? And I think people don't realise, they say looking after yourself and they think, oh yeah, looking after yourself is sitting on the couch watching a movie or going for a spa day. I don't want to go for a bloody spa day. I ain't got time for that. But by taking a day out and coming and doing something like this, it's filled my cup up. That's what you need to do. You need to find the ways to fill your cup up.
Absolutely.
For me, it's this. For other people, it might be reading a book or going for a spa day, or I like to go for a run. That fills my cup up. But I think you've got to know yourself, though, and understand your own body and your own requirements. And there's no point I can't write you a blueprint that works for you, because you are a completely different human being to me. But you've got to know your own body, know your own triggers, and look at what's sensible and prioritise that. And whether that's making time for mentoring or helping other people or whatever it is, you've got to build everything into your life. Otherwise, if all you do is live to work, you'll resent the business.
And it'll be remiss of me then not to pick up on that and ask you about Strictly.
Oh.
What about that then for filling your cup? Did it fill your cup? Did it empty? Did it drain you?
My cup was overflowing when I was doing that. That's what they say, though. How do you get a busy job done? Give it to a busy... How would you get a job done? Give it to a busy woman, right? And I just look, and for somebody who was working full-time building a business, had an investment portfolio, had all of the TV stuff that we do as well, and then on top of that, now I need to dance 60 hours a week. And I just made time to do it. Yeah. And I just fit it into my life, and I fit everything else around it. And I look back now on that time in my life and I think, how the hell did I do that, right? But for me, I had to get up at 5 o'clock every morning, and I was in the studio for 6, and I used to dance from 6 till 12. And then I could still have the rest of the day to get my work done, spend some time with my kids and everything like that. Poor Aliash didn't know there was 2 6 o'clocks in a day. That came as quite the shock to him, I can tell you.
Yeah.
And I looked at some of the other contestants who'd been able to put their whole life on hold, move to London and train for 12, 14 hours a day. And I resented them. I was jealous of them. I wasn't able to do that. So I made the best of the 6 hours that I had. And I used to give all of me in those 6 hours. I used to be fully present, and I used to be so committed. And I remember Aliash saying, you know, it's really great. He says, I can get more out of you in 6 hours than I can get out of other people in 10, 12 hours, because you're so committed and you're there. And I just knew it was one of the biggest opportunities of my life, one that I didn't want to squander. So if I could only do 6 hours a day, I was making them 6 hours count.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Pareto principle before, and I think that's a perfect example of it. And if you don't know what it is, it's like 20% of the input can create 80% of the output and the return. And conversely, you can spend 80% of time doing a lot of stuff that's not producing very much. You want it to be that way round, where that 6 hours counts, what you can put in. I'm going to take another question from online. There's so many questions coming in. Thank you. If we don't get to them all now, I will pass them on, and we'll see if we can just get a little answer and share it.
I could use these as a list for my 6-minute entrepreneur videos.
So then you've got to be watching on the YouTube so that you can follow up and see. But this one's coming from Nicole, and I think it relates to the fact you're a dragon now and you're out there investing. She asks, how do I know when my business is ready for investment? And if you were me, what would be your top tips for getting in front of you for that investment?
Okay, so what I always say is, there's always more than one way to skin a cat, right? So when I first started in business, I had the idea for the enveloper, and I went to look. Business Link helped me. We costed it up to get it tooled in plastic, right? And I didn't want to go to China, because I thought, if I go to China, someone's going to copy me. I don't understand about how to go to China and get products made in China. So I'll use a manufacturer in the UK. And the quote to do that was £30,000, right? And I didn't have £30,000. So at that point, a lot of people would either give up because they haven't got the 30 grand, or they go and find a way to get 30 grand so that they can move forward with that, right? But there's always another way to do it. So for me, I worked out, well, I can have these made in wood. Now, yes, do they look as nice? No. Look a little bit homemade, actually, right? And not only that, whereas a plastic one costs me £1 and I can sell it for £3.50, this one over here, the wooden one, costs us £3 and I sell it for £3.50. It was actually about £2.50, and I was making £1 on each one, basically, right? Whereas actually, if I sold the plastic ones, I would make £3 on each one. Brilliant. But I didn't have 30 grand to get started. So I sold 30,000 of the wooden ones, making £1 profit on each one. That gave me enough profit to then invest and have it tooled up in plastic. It was steps towards it. But whereas other people go, all right, well, I need 30 grand, so I need 30 grand. There's always another way, right? And I always pursued the other ways. So for me, when I took investment into my business, It was about de-risking as I went into a different stage in my life, okay? It wasn't about when I needed the money. It's about when it was nice to have the money to facilitate a different way of thinking within that business. So don't always think just, I've got to have money to get started. You don't. There's always another way around it that you can build with it. And in terms of getting in front of people, so I always say, I mean, the Den is obviously a brilliant. I couldn't encourage you more, and applications are open for next year. Just going to put it out there, right? But what I would say is be ready to pitch. I mean, it still astounds me that we sit in that chair and people walk through those lift doors and I think this is probably the biggest opportunity of your life. And if that was me, I would have read every one of them Dragons autobiographies. I would have watched all their YouTube clips. I would have watched years and years and years of back catalogue on Dragon's Den so that I'd understood it. I would be so goddamn prepared for that biggest opportunity of my life that I was going to nail it. And we have people come in the Den. And I remember saying to one guy this year, they pitched and I just said, have you actually watched this show before? You know, and but it's true. But I just think if you get the opportunity to go and pitch to somebody, you better make that count because you'll never get that opportunity again. So make the most of it.
Oh, I love that. And I really believe this audience is making it count tonight. You've been wonderful, both those here in the room, those joining us. We've got this wonderful stack of questions. I hope you're feeling very enriched by what you've heard tonight and the generous sharing you've given us, Sarah. It's been amazing. I'm going to remind you of the bedrock of what keeps this whole show going. And if you don't know already, it's you filling in those forms. Yes, you all have one, and if you haven't got one, please fill in your feedback and survey form. All that information.
Well, have I told you what the prize is?
We're coming to that.
5 sets of my books. So
you can get a crafting companion and her books. And I'm offering a couple of hours of business coaching, 2 separate opportunities. So there are quite a few prizes out there for those of you who fill it in and leave it.
Yes.
So take this opportunity. No procrastination.
Nope.
Act now. All right, I've got you all shuffling papers, but I want to end and bring this to a close. There's so much we can continue to ask you.
Yep.
Just to finish, everyone. With Sara's going on now, not just to write the book, not just to do the YouTube, but there's going to be a TV show.
Oh my God, you want to know about my new TV show?
So the Big Idea Works?
Big Idea Works.
Big Idea Works. Just tell us about that and what, were you part of the formation of that? What is it you want to achieve by creating that?
Okay, so if any of you that know my story, and we've talked a little bit about it tonight, so I had this vision of people who made handmade cards would want to make homemade envelopes, and there was folding boards out there to make cards, so it must be possible to do folding boards for envelopes. And I had the idea of how it could work, but I'm not an engineer. I was lucky, my dad is an engineer. So my dad was able to sit with me. He was able to work out the engineering to get that product from just an idea in my head or on a scrap of paper into something that worked, and then into a working prototype, right? Most people aren't that lucky to have their dad can do that, right? So the whole premise of the programme is, what I've done is I've built this big workshop up in the northeast of England, and I've brought some of the biggest engineering brains from around the country into that workshop. It's a little bit like the repair shop in that they're the best artisan crafters, but I've got the best engineers. So what happens is we have everyday people off the street. So these aren't necessarily business people. Some of them aren't looking to start a business with it. They've just had an idea for a product, or they've had what seems a semblance of an idea for a product. And what they do is they come up to our Big Idea Workshop and they sit with the engineers and they tell us, this is my vision, this is my idea. I don't know if it can work, but this is what I think. And then the engineers go off and they make it into a prototype, or they try to make it into a prototype. I'm kind of giving the game away. You know, it always works. Yeah. But, you know, so we're going to make this into a working prototype. Then we invite them back a few weeks later and share with them, here's your product that we've made. And then quite often from that, people have gone on to take the prototype, apply for their patent, or they've gone to get ready to commercially launch the business, or it's just that they've had a lovely idea and they want to use the product that they've made. But it's a brilliant programme, and it'll be out in the new year, called The Big Idea Works. And I just think if you love If you love products and you're product people, you're going to absolutely love that.
Oh, we are coming to the end. Is it a very short question? We do. They might not give you the mic, but just tell me quickly. Just tell me quickly what the question is.
I've got a board game that's been on my top of my wardrobe for about 15 years because I made it with my daughter when she was 8. And
don't worry. What's the question? You've made a board game.
How do I get my board game onto your show?
Oh, how does she get on the show?
It sounds to me like you are more suited for the den, for a business idea, because there's no engineering needed for your board game, is there not? You don't need us to engineer it.
What do you mean?
That's a question maybe we can take up after the...
I made it out of a cereal box and it actually works. No, honestly.
It sounds like a great question. And I think I need to say, and I think it's been said already, is there going to be time for networking and a bit more chat. So this has done the job, Sara.
Yes.
Authentic.
Inspired.
Trailblazing, amazing. Sara Davies, everybody give her an amazing